Oh,
Oh, that's your signal.
it is. It is. Well, welcome back to the Nonprofit Management Institute. Our topic for today is human resources. And there's a special occasion today. We have graduation. And so um, congratulations, everybody. I know we're supposed to do that at the end, but congratulations. So we are in session 6, and we will complete our institute to today. Team, if we could just go ahead to the next slide, that would be great. So our last session, session 5, we covered 2 topics, financial management and fundraising. And as it relates to financial management, I do want to do just a little bit of a revisiting of some of the information that we shared as it relates to fundraising, specifically donor giving. So we're going to kick off the morning with engaging in some work related to donor giving. But before we go to fundraising, is there anything that when you look in your notes or you look in your material or you think about last week, and I know that was quite a few days ago, is there anything about financial management that you are not clear about? Is there anything that you can think of or that comes to mind as we get ready to go into our final topic? Is there anything related to financial management that you're not clear about? And you can unmute yourselves. I know we're going to stay right here on the slide. Um, if you want to unmute yourself, or you can put it in the chat. The team, as you know, is paying attention to the chat. So is there anything when you look at your notes, and I'm going to pause for just a minute, just to give you some time to get settled in and to collect yourselves as it relates to the question that I'm asking. Again, last week we covered financial management and fundraising, and we typically cover both of these topics during the same session. One, because it is just as important for the fundraising side of the organization to understand what's happening on the financial management side of the organization, and vice versa. And so is there anything when you look back at your material or you think about what we covered? Tracy, our Chief Financial Officer with the North Carolina Center, was with us and added to our workshop last week. Is there anything that you think I am just not really clear about as it relates to financial management? I think, is there a couple of things in the chat or is that just good morning comments
It's
there?
just good morning. No one yet.
Okay, all right. Okay,
I don't see any hands on the other pages.
all
So,
right. Thank you,
yeah.
Lisa.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, what about a fundraising? So we're gonna spend some time on the donor giving portion this morning, but is there anything that you kind of think to yourself as we talked about fundraising, is there anything related to the stages or donor communication or the programs or fund development strategies or what we went over as it relates to fund development and human resources? Is there anything that you think that comes to mind for you that you're not real clear about? And I don't see anything in the chat. I'm looking for hands raised. Okay,
Nope.
okay, all right. So we're gonna do some work as it relates to donor giving, just to kind of get us going this morning. And team, if we could just go back to the gallery, that would be great. So that means we can all go on the road together and do a workshop on financial management and fundraising for nonprofits. Where are my takers? Yes, 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 yes. Thank you, Mary Beth. I see you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I appreciate that. By all means, we are all we have met, we have gotten to know each other over the past weeks. So we are colleagues in this work. And so I have a list of all your names and contact information. So Rebecca, Lisa, and Leslie, when it's time to go on the road, we're gonna call upon some of our colleagues that are with us today. If I could get you to in your workbooks, I'm grabbing mine. If I could get you to turn to page, I believe it's 119. So I want to focus on donor giving. Donor giving. What do you recall about prospecting from last week? What do you recall? What's the first thing that comes to mind for you as it relates to prospecting and the work that we did last week? What comes to mind for you? And you can put it in the chat, or we're paying attention as well. If you want to raise a hand or if you want to unmute yourself, that's fine as well. What comes to mind for you? Because we did some work on generating prospects.
You have don't prejudge whether or not someone will give. Many small donations will add up quickly.
Mm-hmm.
You can ask almost anybody.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Simply
Mhm.
thinking about who we know.
Yes, yes, absolutely.
Mhm.
The key is to make the ask. That's the key.
Mhm.
And oftentimes, what we find is that people give to people we know, and it is about the asking. However, there are times when we are engaged in prospecting donors or people to give, where I might identify the prospect, but it might be someone else who makes the ask. And so we want to be mindful of that. Or it may be someone who joins me in making the ask. And so who the messenger is or who the person is representing our organization is very important as well. Lisa, did I miss anything else that's in the chat? And I don't see any hands raised or anything, and we don't want to leave anyone's comments out.
No, but I wanted to share Sean's comment. It was funny, saying when you were asking about finance co-presenters, it says I can't do it, but now I won't sound stupid when I speak with my finance team.
Ah,
I thought that was
well,
pretty good.
thank you. Absolutely. That's why we're here. So if we've accomplished that, that's major. Thank you so much for sharing that. Absolutely. So if you're there, I want you to go to page 119. We're gonna complete that worksheet. But to complete that worksheet, we're going to be referencing pages 120, pyramid of giving, page 121, types of giving, page 122, types of fundraising. So those are the three pages that we are going to use. 120, 121, 122 is what we're referencing. And so we're going to do a scavenger hunt. So on page 119 is the scavenger hunt activity. And so what we would like for you to do is to utilize those 3 pages to find the answers to these bullet points here. You're going to identify the number of giving programs. You're going to write what those giving programs are. And then we're going to match the donor type which is in that material. Which is there, habitual, impulse, and thoughtful. We're gonna match these 3 donor types with each giving program. So the third bullet is referencing what we put in the second bullet. And then what does the pyramid symbolize? So that is our scavenger hunt for donor giving, and just kind of focusing on donor giving. Once we do this, we're going to move into our new material on human resources. So page 119, you are completing the scavenger hunt activity, and the hunt is taking place from the information on page 120, 121, and 122. So I'm going to go silent here for a couple minutes and let you work on that. I'll give you a couple of more minutes on the scavenger hunt. All right, fundraising, donor giving. Is everybody good? Do we need more time? Think we're ready to go? Awesome. Okay. All right. And you can unmute, or you can put in the chat, what are the number of giving programs? How many giving programs have we identified in the material? How many giving programs? 3. I see 3, I see 3, I see 3. What a way to start the morning, a pop quiz, right? So yes, there are 3 programs. What are the 3 giving programs? What are the names of the 3 giving programs? Let's see, Lisa, what pops up?
Annual,
So
estate,
far.
and major.
Oh, thank you, Mary Beth.
Oh,
Thank
there we
you.
go. Mhm.
Mary Beth is really gonna join us, not like for real, for real, for real, for real. Thank you so much, Mary Beth.
Looks like everybody's on it.
Absolutely. Estate giving, major giving, annual giving. And if we look at page 120, we'll see also just some ways in which that takes place. The annual giving, the major giving, the estate giving. Annual giving, some examples of that is having a donor base that we are approaching on an annual basis, doing some personal solicitation for gifts. Some of us use direct mail. Some of us have special events each year. Some of you have some capstone events that you do each and every year to raise money for your organization. And then major giving is we're seeking out corporations and foundations. And I would put an asterisk by Capital Campaign because that is typically where we see major giving happening, because we still want individuals to give their annual gift. And the Capital Campaign oftentimes is for something very specific that we need at a particular time. And oftentimes renovations of buildings, purchasing buildings, buying vehicles, might be something that you might do a capital campaign around. And then estate giving are those planned gifts. So oftentimes individuals will bequest a gift to our organizations, and they've planned that they're going to give to our organization and long after they are with us. And that is the estate giving. So the annual, the major giving, and the estate giving. And then on page 121, we've offered up some types of a narrative to just kind of describe those types of giving. And then on page 122 is more of narratives to go along or ways to describe what each of those are in terms of types of giving. So our donor types are habitual, impulse, and thoughtful. Habitual, impulse, and thoughtful. And so let's begin with habitual. So what giving program aligns, do you think, with a person who is giving over and over and over again? So they've developed a habit of giving. Which one of the giving programs do you think we might approach that person with? I see annual. I
think it's
see,
major.
I see major. Major would be number one, and definitely for annual, you would do that automatically too. But they are prime candidates for a major gift because they've demonstrated that they are willing to support us and committed to supporting us over and over and over again. And especially if they have given annually for several years. So you do your annual appeal or you do your annual event and they show up with giving each and every time. That's a really good sign that they may be a very good prospect for a major gift, like a capital campaign or something like that. What about impulse, which might be an appropriate approach to take for the person who's giving maybe for the first time? Let's see, I see annual, I see annual, I see annual. Yes, yes. That would be my number one as well. And it's not to say that we might not get a person who is kind of this impulse donor on a capital campaign. That could happen because sometimes we do have individuals where we're raising money for something specific and they may have not given to us before, but that thing that we're trying to capital campaign for, they see it as something that matters to them and they may give for that. And that may be their first gift. But annual would be, this is where we want to entice and get people started on giving. And then thoughtful. What might be the option? Great. I see I see estate popping up in the chat. That is correct. So a thoughtful donor may be a very good prospect for planned giving, so that they plan to give to us over long after they are with us. So they plan to do that. What does the pyramid symbolize? And can I have a voice with this response? What does the pyramid symbolize? And if you all would go to page 120 as we're talking about this particular scavenger hunt item. What does the pyramid symbolize?
Giving.
Can you tell me a little bit more about what your thoughts are?
Like, well, money. So the money that's going to come into you. So the giving of money to your organization.
So the pyramid symbolizes the giving of money. There are individuals, and do we have any in the group with us? Or do we have any professional fundraisers that are with us? Where that is, hi, Mary Beth. There we go. Anybody else other than Mary Beth? That's your calling, right? Anybody else that, that this is what you do? Anybody else? Anybody else? I don't see anybody else. Mary Beth, you're okay. So in the field, and Mary Beth, chime in here at any point. In the field of fundraising, the pyramid is kind of like the fundamental analogy that we use to kind of talk about this idea of having a real solid foundation in annual giving. And that if we have a solid foundation in annual giving, that's why I wanted you to turn to page 120. If we have a solid foundation in annual giving, it should help support and move along the asking of major gifts and estate gifts. And so the idea is to build that foundation, get some momentum, establish what those annual fundraising strategies are going to be, what your 12-month plan is for raising money, because fundraising just doesn't happen one time because we have an event. It is happening and should be happening throughout the year and culminate in obtaining or reaching whatever that fundraising goal is to do what? Meet the budget. We're trying to meet the budget. And Tracy talked to us about the budget. So when we're thinking about fundraising for the next year, we should be comparing that to what is projected in revenue or contributions coming into the organization. Then we're crafting our fundraising strategies to meet that, minimally to meet that. Mary Beth, you want to chime in?
I think that is a good synopsis, but I also have always looked at the pyramid as from a literally a physical standpoint. You want to have a really wide annual giving foundation as far as the number of gifts and number of donors. But that number of donors will generally decrease as thoughtfulness of the gift increases. But that also works with the amounts. A good annual foundation is generally a lot of smaller gifts, but the reason the pyramid gets smaller at the top is because you're getting fewer gifts, but they're bigger. So that's why all three components are just as important as the other.
Thank you.
Dr. Palmer, you also have Martha, who's also a fundraiser too.
All
Just
right.
letting you know that.
All right. Do you care to chime in? Something's going on.
Oh, not with my, it's fine. I'm good.
Okay.
I think you get it.
Okay. All right. Okay. All right. Was that you, Martha, with the radio? Was that no? Was that?
I'm trying to get it fixed, but it's not. So
Okay. Okay. All right. All right. Thank you. So yeah. So and thank you, Mary Beth. I knew there was a connect there. We're going on the road together. We are, for real. it's important to recognize and consider what Mary Beth shared and what I shared in terms of your theoretical framework for fundraising. You know, the theoretical framework is the pyramid, for example. And again, the theory is that if we build a real solid foundation of consistency in establishing habitual donors, then the idea is that we'll be able to rise to being able to go out and ask for a state gift. So that's the theoretical framework for what it is that we're talking about. Be patient with your fundraising. Be patient with that. Stay the course. You know, sometimes we get a little impatient because we're not raising money at the level that we want. I encourage us to stay consistent, have a plan and work the plan, and not give up on the plan before you're able to yield what it is that you're trying to as it relates to the momentum. You know, take the time to get a return on your investment of the time and planning that you're doing to fundraise. You know, so take time to get a return on that. And there's no substitute for asking for gifts. There's no substitute for doing the consistent work. There's no substitute for that. There's no substitute for staying the course. It has to be intentional, quite often strategic, and definitely just kind of working your plan until you get to your goal. The only other thing I will say about that is also think about if you're trying to do like an annual fundraiser and you're wanting to build momentum with that, keep in mind that your annual fundraiser should align with your mission, and it should also align with your capacity. You know, it's great to want to do a golf tournament, but it takes time to yield return on golf tournaments. And so it's not a fundraiser that you do where you're going to raise money really, really fast. There's several components of a golf tournament that you are working simultaneously to get you to your goal. So keep that in mind and do your research, do your homework when you're thinking about what that annual event, if that's the route you take, is going to be. Mary Beth, I see your hand.
I was just gonna also say, I've actually taught special event classes before, and usually what I tell people is be mindful of doing a special event. You know, what is your purpose for that? If it is just to raise money, there's better ways to do it. If it is to want to raise awareness for the organization and raise some money while you're doing it, then absolutely. But it is about capacity. So if you're a really small agency, and you don't have any committee that has fundraisers on it, you might want to think of other ways, you know, that are better for your organization's size to raise the money than to take on a big fundraiser.
Team, there are some comments in the chat. I think I saw a question mark. That's the only reason I'm pausing.
Well, you
kinda-
have, you have
okay.
2 comments. So, one, Crystal mentioned many times your base donors can rise to the estate for first-time donors. Steph says, and then when that happens, did you bring in new base donors? I guess this is a question. Sadly, like all of us, your donor base ages. That's what we're working on. Would love thoughts people have on reaching a new generation of donors. That's a good one. You want me to keep going, or you want to address that?
Well, I won't go too far into the weeds with that, but social media is a way to reach the younger generation. If you can incorporate, and I'm trying to remember right now, and somebody who's in marketing might know, that one of the social media platforms is more popular than others with the younger generation. Like Facebook is not, I know that's not the popular one with the younger generation. It might be Instagram or it might be one of the others. But I would say do a little research around social media and how to reach that population, et cetera, et cetera. They live with their phones in their hands. Like they don't ever put their back pocket. You notice that? Like it's in their back pocket, the phone, literally. And so I would think about that if I had just an initial response, Lisa.
Okay, others are saying bring volunteers in, that would help.
Mhm, mhm,
Let me see. Bringing younger volunteers into your organization can help. Similar to what you just said, one way we reach first-time donors is through a newsletter, social media. We invite them to the center for a tour to understand the
mhm,
mission. Someone said TikTok and Substack
mhm.
are more popular
Hmm,
with younger people. Haven't heard of that one.
okay,
Insta is fading with Facebook.
okay.
Instagram for millennials, TikTok for Gen Z.
Mhm, mhm,
That's
mhm,
funny how
mhm.
our generations have particular
Yeah,
social
yeah,
media.
yeah.
That's it for now.
Okay, all right, thank you so much. So again, our topic last week was financial management and fundraising. We just wanted to spend a little bit more time on the fundraising piece. And again, you know, the work, the consistency, there's no substitute for it. So whatever strategy you use or whatever mechanism you're trying to use to draw in donors and to maintain donors and to recognize donors, consistency, consistency, consistency. When you break up the consistency, then the communication for raising money isn't as reliable. The communication breaks down. So you want to make sure that we're consistently asking in alignment with our donor base. And we have to spend time growing the donor base, studying the donor base, and paying attention to what the activity that's happening as it relates to how they're giving, how much they're giving. All of that requires some attention. And what I will say is some of our nonprofit organizations aren't fortunate enough to have a person designated, ironically, right? Designated for development and or fundraising. You know, oftentimes we will look for a grant writer and we will put a lot of energy into that. And oftentimes we don't put as much energy into identifying the coordinator of all of our fundraising endeavors. And I think we miss an opportunity for unrestricted dollars when we do that, because we'll spend a lot of time writing a grant that we hope that we might get based on who's on the other side of the decision making, when we have a little bit more, I'm going to use the word control loosely, we have a little bit more control over how we navigate reaching out and trying to get donors to give or trying to get individuals to give. So I want to bring closure to that in terms of our kind of reflection recap of last week. Our topic today is human resources. That is our topic for today. Team, thank you. I didn't even have to, there we go. So here is what our plan is for today. We are going to focus on human resources. We're going to have a graduation. The team is going to talk to you about how to evaluate the Institute overall and or the session, and then we're going to move into a closing. So that's our agenda for today. Human resources is broken into 3 parts: recruitment, retention, reward. Recruitment, retention, reward. And much of what we're going to do today is information out, right? We're going to be sharing information. In your workbook, if you go to page 126, the human resource material is from page 126 to 133. From 126 to 133. And we're going to share in the chat in just a moment. We're going to share one document, and that document is going to have specific topics, just like we have here. And there are going to be links in that document for you to refer to. Now, we're going to share our screen and make sure that we are walking you through the material. But I just want you to know that that's coming up. So we're going to share a doc, and it's going to have specific topics in it. And then there are going to be some links there. We're going to get to that in just a moment. So as it relates to recruitment, we're going to spend some time talking about our paid employees and staff, job descriptions, compensation, hiring practices. We're going to discuss independent contractors versus exempt employees, the living wage as it relates to retention. The focus here is on our employee handbook, and having an employee handbook, background checks, conflict of interest. How do we, in what ways do we offer up some employee relations in terms of working with the people that we bring on board in our organizations, succession planning, we're going to talk about that, and then reward, career development, promotion, professional development, performance evaluations, and then compensation. So these are our topics as it relates to human resources for today. And much of what we have here, we have we're going to have an accompanying link of material that we're going to share with you. So if we could go back to the gallery. Team, I'm gonna let us take a 5-minute break, if that's okay. We're gonna take a break, and then we're gonna transition into human resources. The time is 10:11, so let's come back at 10:15. I said 5 minutes, but 4 minutes. Let's come back at 10:15-ish. Okay. We are going to jump into our human resources topic. And team, if we could show slide 8. So I wanted to just kind of begin with kind of hearing from you or hearing from us. What does human resource management and/or personnel administration look like in your nonprofit? So what does human resource management or personnel administration, what does that look like in your nonprofit? So in other words, how do you do human resource management, or how do you do personnel administration? And you can put your response in the chat, or you can unmute yourself and describe that to us.
Martha says she has an HR manager. That's helpful. HR director. That's someone else. That's Megan.
And Megan and Martha, can you tell us how many employees you have? Can you drop that in the chat also?
We are small, so we don't have one. I'm the only staff person.
Okay.
Megan has 43. Wow.
Okay.
Oops, it's going fast. Board
I know.
member who is HR manager, serves as a capacity something. Okay, capacity consultant. HR committee we have a finance director, accidental HR person. We're small, so we don't have one. Executive committee on board does it. Interesting. We don't have one. CHRO and one HR manager. That was Emily.
Okay.
One director of operations.
Okay.
Sounds like most folks have someone to help them out.
A mix of ops.
Yeah. Yeah.
So here's what we know to be true. All of what you described is what we see, right? And quite often HR, when we don't have the resources to bring in a HR manager or a person that's designated for that work, it will become the work of the person who's the most stationary in the building, right? So the person who isn't in and out, finance person, who was the person that put, was it something finance? It was kind of catchy in terms of what they said. But anyway, oftentimes that is what happens, is that it will become the role of the person who physically is in the building, so to speak. And I know we work virtually now, but it typically to be that person who's the most stationary and who's easily accessible. And oftentimes the finance person will have that role. It emerges that way, and I see it over and over and over and over again. It is important, though, if it's not going to be the executive director, which oftentimes I don't think I saw executive director with that role. I don't think I saw that pop up, but oftentimes it is the executive director
There
that would
is
take
one.
on.
Yeah.
Oh, is it? Okay.
Yeah. I
Okay.
think that's Mary Ann.
Okay. Okay.
Mhm.
But oftentimes the executive director would take on the responsibility of managing all things related to human resources or doing all the personnel administration tasks. And so it can be very, very challenging to ensure that the function of this role is meeting our needs. It can be very, very challenging to do that. And it is oftentimes, as you all have stated here, it's coupled with another role that someone else has. And so we don't always have the resources to be able to have a designated person. Now, how do we offset that? I saw in the chat, or Lisa shared, that some of you may have a human resource or personnel committee that is one of the committees of the board. And so that gives the organization some help when needed, especially when you're dealing with personnel matters that are not so positive. When you have some challenges as it relates to personnel, situations that you have to manage, if you're fortunate enough to have an HR professional on your board, what I find is that oftentimes they're very open to being somewhat of the neutral HR resource to help address personnel and HR matters. But I will tell you, this is an area where a lot of our nonprofit organizations are limited in its capacity to meet the true needs of what's needed as it relates to HR management and personnel. And we work with what we have, and sometimes that works great and it works in our favor and all is well. But sometimes there are situations that occur where when we're limited in our skill set, we may have to go and find that resource. So as you're looking at the composition of your board, of all the positions that you could possibly have, or representation that you could possibly have, having a credentialed HR professional on your board is very, very helpful. It's very, very helpful. And like I said, in particular, when you find yourself in situations that is not about showing appreciation and wanting to embrace our employees, but when you have a challenge or you have something that you have to deal with that's more of a conflict. And sometimes that can be difficult if you don't have that professional in place. If we could go to the gallery just for a moment. Any kind of thoughts or reaction to what we've described here before we go into the details of our topic today? Human resources, personnel administration. On a scale of 1 to 10, how confident are you? 1 being very little confidence, 10 being high level of confidence. What is your degree of confidence in how your organization works in the space in the area of human resources and personnel administration? 1, low confidence, 10, high confidence. What would you say?
Got some 5s, some 10s.
Mhm.
Someone said it's hard.
Mm-hmm.
Someone said a 10.
Okay.
A little bit of bouncing
Okay.
around, 5 to 8.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
A lot of 5s though, midway.
Okay. Mhm. So we're doing okay with that. So again, I would encourage you, if you don't have in place a way to address situations when they're not positive. Let me just put it that way. How are you going to navigate those kinds of situations where the people that you are working with are experiencing some challenges and they're in need of some support from the organization for whatever reason, guidance, support? I would encourage you to try to have a credentialed HR professional to be available to you. And most of them are very open to being on our boards. I can't encourage that enough. I chair a board right now, and the organization does not have a designated HR person. The executive director or the CEO is responsible for that. And over this past year, we've had a handful of situations, which is not common for this organization, but we've had a handful of situations where our representative on our board, who is a credentialed HR professional, has had to guide the CEO through a variety of steps. I, as the chair, have been a part of some of that, not in the weeds on those things, but my colleague on the board has been able to really be of great help to us. And so if you don't have anything else, I would encourage that. Slide 9, team, slide 9. So in terms of thinking about the human resources, if you go to page 126 in your workbook, go to page 126. This is one of my favorite handouts in all the material that we have. This is one of my favorite handouts because it's a quick reference. It gives us the 3 kind of lead organizations that helps us to better understand the statutes related to equal employment opportunity. And so we have the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission, we have the Equal Employment Opportunity Act, and we have the Equal Employment Opportunity Law. Now, the expectation here is not that we all become credentialed HR professionals, but what we do want to leave you with where you might go to garner more information to guide your work with a credentialed HR professional. And so when you look at each of these areas or each of these resources, we're able to identify how this aligns with the Civil Rights Act as it relates to equal employment opportunity, an overview of what the EEOC is and how and how that's set up, and then also the statutes that are a part of understanding how we are to work with the people that we employ. And so in this kind of 2-column table, we've got the specific acts here, the Equal Employment Opportunity Acts, and then we have kind of how that aligns as it relates to the statutes and how we might need to think about these particular acts that align with potential situations that we might experience in our organizations. So knowing where to go is important. Now, the other thing that's relevant, so those lend to guiding principles and ways in which we should work with the people that we employ. The EEOC, the EEOA, EEOL, Commission Act laws. The other principle that's important to us here at the North Carolina Center, and you'll see this in our Principles and Practices Guide, another guiding principle or principles and values that we lift up and try to be in alignment with are related to equity, diversity, and inclusion. And so every organization has its own way of aligning. We also have this, we have a statement that we also have. We shared that with you. I think it was the first session or the second session, as it relates to equity, diversity, and inclusion as well. And so you may add to this list in terms of what are your guiding principles and values related to your employees and how you relate to your employees, and also volunteers. Don't leave volunteers out of this, because volunteers and the people that we contract with, they're also a part of helping us get our work completed in our organization. So don't want to just say paid individuals, but we also want to keep these principles and values top of mind when we're engaging with individuals that we contract with, and also individuals that are volunteering with us. So it's paid employees, it's contractors that we work with, and also volunteers. What are our principles? What are our guiding principles? What are our values as it relates to that? Recruitment. So that's there for your for you as a quick reference. Recruitment, and if we could go to the next slide. So one of the areas that we focus on is recruitment. And it's if you break it down again, it's recruitment, retention, and reward. That's kind of our big picture kind of way of looking at who we work with. And team, did we drop in the document with the links? Did we drop that in the chat yet? The human resources handout reference document.
I want to say we
Yes,
did
we did.
earlier up. Yes.
Yeah, we did.
Mhm.
All right, can we switch to that? Do you mind if we just go away from that? Yeah. Just want everybody to see before we get into this exercise. So this is what the team has provided for you in the chat, and I want to make sure that everyone has it. So if everyone could go to the chat and go ahead and have this at the ready so that you can reference this. And so we just talked about in terms of the introduction, we talked about the guiding principles and values being in alignment with EEO, and that would be Commission Law and Act. And then we also, which I do believe you may have, but you have the Principles and Practices Guide that we provided earlier as it relates to equity, diversity, and inclusion. And then we provided another resource here for you if you are interested in writing a policy related to that. So now we're going into recruitment. And we have some resources available to you as it relates to volunteers and managing volunteers. The NCAVA, which is an organization that focuses on volunteer administration, it has changed its name over the years. And then compensation, we have a resource there that we will refer to hiring practices, status of workers, whether they're independent contractors or exempt, and then also living wage. So those are the items that we're going to be referencing. And then under retention, when we get to that particular part of our work, we're going to be referencing a resource there as it relates to retaining employees. A handbook, we want to show you kind of what the different sections or the table of contents for a handbook that you can compare if you have an existing one, or you can develop one using this resource. Grievance process when individuals have concerns, And how do they go about engaging with your organization if they have a concern? Also, resources related to succession planning. So again, recruitment, retention, and then reward is the third part of our topic for today. And that is career development, professional development, and performance evaluation and compensation review. So those are the resources that you will have at your disposal. And so we just want to leave you with resources that you can reference as it relates to these particular areas of human resources and personnel administration. So that, just wanted to make sure you had that and have an overview of that. When can you give voice, Maurice?
Sorry
I
about
saw-
that. I was typing too fast. I apologize.
Okay.
It was like, what is that? I accidentally pushed enter. I'm like, man, come on. I gotta do better. I'm sorry
Okay.
about that. I was
Okay.
saying, when will these resources be available? That's what I was trying to say. Again,
They're already
for the major typo.
They're already available. We just put the link to the document in the chat. So
Okay.
you'll have all of this. Yeah.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am.
Okay.
Sorry about
All right.
that.
Okay. No worries. Okay. So let's go back to slide 10. Let's go back to slide 10. So we want to start with job descriptions is really kind of where we're going here. One of the ways to really set the stage for a healthy path to retention and reward is to craft each role that we have, to give it a description, and to also lay out in that description what the roles and responsibilities are of that individual or of that position. And so what we've provided for you as just kind of as a practice. So if we've got 10 different positions in our organization, we should have 10 different job descriptions. And the job description should include what the roles and responsibilities are of that individual. And then also, sometimes you'll see competencies, sometimes you'll see attributes, sometimes you'll see other ways of mapping out or creating a job description. Every organization is different. Now, we all, understand that there are things that we sometimes do in our roles and positions that don't show up in the job description all the time. And so keep in mind that the job description is a guide. It is a guide. It can, and the way in which positions evolve, it can change. And so we provide the job description to give a general overview and to help us to understand the essence of what the role is and how that and what the roles are and what the responsibility is to the individuals in the position. And so for a practice today, we are going to focus on the executive director role. And so what we want to do is we want to answer the questions on page 120, 127. And so, and then what we want to do is we want to provide some feedback in terms of how we crafted the description. Team, can we go back to the gallery? And then, Rebecca, I'm going to ask you, and you just tell me yay or nay. Can we go into a breakout for this? Thank you. And so you're going to go into your breakout, and in your breakout, you're going to work together to answer the following questions about the executive director position or the CEO position. What is the title for the position? What is the purpose of the position? We're on page 127. What would this person do on a daily basis? what skills are necessary to complete these tasks, how many hours per day, per week are required to complete these tasks. Lisa, I know you're laughing at that
Mhm.
number 5. I know you're laughing at
Mhm.
that. And then number 6, who will supervise the person? And then if you would add compensation, just for fun, just add compensation to that list. So you're going to be working together, your ABC nonprofit, you're creating a job description for your organization. Let's just say you're the executive committee for all practical purposes, and you're going to complete your answers, and then we're going to come back into the gallery and have a discussion about that. Rebecca, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Is everybody clear on what your task is? Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and open up the rooms and we'll be back in 10.
Thank you, Rebecca. We all back? Are we all back? Where is everybody?
No, not quite. There's a couple.
Okay.
There's a
It's
couple.
like, wait a
people
minute.
wrapping up. Yeah.
I was about to say, did everybody leave? Where did everybody go? All right, welcome back, everyone. Let's see. Okay, so were there any in your conversation as it relates to answering the questions? Were there any kind of aha moments, or did anything come up that you hadn't really thought about, either related to the executive director, specifically the executive director position, or just the whole idea of posing a series of questions that you answer in order to jumpstart the writing of that description of a job description? Any comments one way or the other? Any takeaways or any kind of ahas that you go, didn't think about it quite like that?
I think I'm having an aha right now. We had a group with an executive director in it, and who just before we got off named the skill set of collaboration and delegation as being primary for the executive director, which in some sense introduces the recognition of collaboration and how important it is, especially that relationship between the board and the executive director. But it also communicates a kind of culture of nonprofit leadership, which is to work with people and to work together. So it's not as hierarchical that we might see in corporate, et cetera. So we were able to, in our group, problematize some of the language around supervision, for example, in order to try to create a more collaborative language. And so that tone would need to be a part of the entire description of the executive director.
Mhm. And Melanie,
Also a
thank you
lot
for
of work.
oh,
Yeah.
yes. Mhm.
And needs to-
So the item number 5, that was kind of just a lot of work, maybe a lot of time, a
we
lot of,
definitely said it was over 40. Yeah, over 40 hours a week.
okay.
Yeah, we didn't get a chance to go into lots of conversation, but my general understanding is that it's very easy to become overwhelmed as an ED, even 7 months in, where and that every ED deserves to have a kind of wisdom council around them for self-care and health of the organization, that this is not a waste of time, actually, to have people who you can connect with, because the burnout rate of EDs is also quite high.
Thank you so much.
I actually used to have a committee that I called the KEDS committee. And it was for people who would just, maybe take me out to lunch, let me vent, let me, talk about problems that,
Mhm.
in a confidential place. And KEDS
Mhm.
stood for Keep the Executive Director Sane.
Wow. Yes. A lot of moving parts, some that we know about and some that we don't know about until it happens on a given day. I want to go back to what Melanie shared about collaboration and delegation. And just reminding us that our executive directors, if not all of us, right, because we're all ambassadors, regardless of our role, volunteer, contracted person, paid employee, we're all ambassadors for our nonprofit. But I wanted to go back to something she said about the nonprofit leadership, and nonprofit leadership being different than maybe corporate leadership or business leadership. Not 100% different, but there is the aspect of how much of an asset relationships are. And as, in particular, as the executive director, being able to outward face in a way that is collaborative, and that it conveys that we are working together, better together, get more done together, and being able to really carry that spirit into the spaces that the executive director has to work. Because that individual is working with employees, they're working with a group of volunteers on a board, they're working with funders, they're working with grantors, they're working with volunteers, they're working with the people who are receiving the services. And so you think about, that's 10, I think it was about 10 that I just named, of individual, unique groups of people that this executive director has to work with. And so this skill set of being able to have healthy, fruitful, interpersonal relationships with those entities or with those individuals is very important. It can shut down the impact of a nonprofit organization when we're not able to demonstrate and show up in those ways as the ED. So I know that was a mouthful, but Melanie kind of teed it up for me. So I just want us to kind of recognize that, because I may be very good at and skilled at operations and managing the operations, the physical space, all of that, but I may not necessarily have the attributes to be able to establish, maintain, and sustain those relationships of collaboration and partnering. Very, very important part of that. Anybody else? Any other group? Any aha moments about the executive director position in particular, or the process of responding to a series of questions to jumpstart the writing of your actual job description for any position? We just used executive director as an example.
I would say it was helpful within within our group to kind of talk about shared language. So we talked about that it could vary based on what organization, how they describe whether it's executive director, COO, CEO, and so forth, CPO. So we kind of developed the shared language so we can kind of agree on that, right? In developing or answering these questions. So that was really helpful to talk through that, because it could vary from different organizations. So that was something that was a takeaway for me.
Definitely. And so subsectors, right? Because we are a nonprofit sector, but then there are subsectors which might call for a different way of describing various positions. Some of our organizations are arts organizations. Some of our organizations are providing counseling, mental health services, after-school programs, museums, healthcare. I mean, we run the gamut in terms of the different subsectors of the nonprofit sector as a whole. And so very important to keep that in mind. Anybody else? Anybody else? Any other group? Any ahas, or just kind of this exercise of, and your questions may be different. I mean, you may utilize these questions as well, but your questions may be different. Anybody else? In terms of just kind of aha, or just some takeaways from that exercise? While if there's someone, please don't hesitate to chime in. But if you look at page 128, we provided you another resource to go along with that. So you can kind of start maybe crafting what the layout of your job descriptions are going to be. And the layout and the format should be consistent across job descriptions, just so that you can have a formality as to how you create your job descriptions. And so you can add to that and definitely can take away from that. Anybody else? Any kind of ahas or this kind of whole exercise of making sure really that we start with, well, what is the purpose of the position? And how do we see this position in the operations of what it is that we do in our nonprofit organization? Anybody else? If not, we'll keep moving right along. Okay, we do want to take a minute to talk about the difference in the independent contractor and the exempt or non-exempt employee. And so Lisa is going to share with us some information and give us a backdrop to that. And Lisa, do you mind sharing a little bit too about your executive director role that you served in your career, and or CEO, just a little bit of that as you go into the independent contractor and exempt role?
Sure. So most of you probably have an idea of exempt, non-exempt, independent contractor. So I'm just going to give and highlight, and if you all have some follow-up questions, please ask. But for those of you who would like a refresh, so independent contractors, keep in mind that these are people they're self-employed for one. That means that they make their own hours. They're not an employee of your organization. They bring their own tools to work in, and they're responsible for paying their own taxes. So very clear what an independent contractor is and what they do. I had the experience when I worked for 25 years at a nonprofit called Passage Home, and for a short stint of time, we had a transition of executive directors where I had to fill the role. And we did have a contractor working with us, but I noticed after a while, because obviously if I'm working in a different capacity, this wasn't in my face as much as when I took over the ED role, that this person was coming in all the time, was attending our staff meetings, was filling out a timesheet, and what else was he doing? He asked for to use our copy machine, was using all different kinds of things that sort of rose a red flag in my head. And I'm like, well, why is this person doing all this? And so he had worked there for so long. It's really interesting. He worked there for so long that he sort of, the staff and everyone sort of, how do you say, transitioned him into an employee, so to speak, without it really being on paper that he was an employee. So just be mindful of how things like that can metaphor itself into something else, and the person gets really comfortable, and next thing you know, they think they're an employee, but they're not. So that's independent contractors. Talking about exempt and non-exempt, again, most of you are probably familiar with these terms, but the main difference between the two lies in how they're compensated and their eligibility for overtime pay. So an exempt employees, they're not eligible for overtime. They're salaried. They're paid the same regardless of the number of hours worked. So that goes back to what you all were talking about earlier in the job description about the number of hours. What is it? They work until the job gets done. And that can encompass anything on how you define that. They're usually executives or admin roles versus the non-exempt employee. They are eligible for overtime pay. So remember that. And specific grantees, excuse me, specific guidance will come from the federal and state level, depending on where your business is located. So with non-exempt employees, where you really have to be careful, I had to be careful as well, where we had case managers who would work, and a lot of times they had to work over their hours because maybe their clients didn't come home till the evening and they had to extend their hours and wait. So I would just work with them and say, look, if you have to go in to do night checks at night, come in later during the day, come in later the next day in order to offset your hours. So try to make sure you're keeping track of your employees who are not exempt with their hours. Exempt categories, there are also some new rules in the 2024 Fair Labor Standards Act, we'll reference that and put that in your wraparound email as well. Most of the exempt categories, they can be executive role, which are paid above a certain salary and whose main duties are management of a larger part of the organization. You have a professional category where they're not on another pay scale, and their jobs are based on recognized professional knowledge, like such as attorneys, CPAs, doctors, so on and so forth. Administrative employees, they're also paid on another level and whose primary duties are non-manual work that include the exercise of discretion and independent judgment. So we also have, and I think we'll put it also in your wraparound, a Department of Labor fact sheet, and they'll give you more details about each of these categories and how, and if you're not sure, they have a duties test within each. So if the person does this, if they do this, they should fit in this particular category. And I'll explain that some more. And the last category is a highly compensated category. Again, another pay scale. And these folks regularly perform at least some of the job duties of an executive professional or an administrative employee. So again, a lot of that will be explained in the fact sheet that will help you to figure out what categories your employees should fall within. That's pretty much a high level view of that. Anything I missed, Dr. Palmer?
Nope, I think you got it. Thank you.
If you have
And
any
again-
questions, I was going to say put it in the chat and then
Mhm.
I'll follow up.
I do think Lisa did mention, and keep in mind that because some of our organizations are small, when I say small, I'm not meaning the work, I'm meaning the number of individuals that we employ versus not. Oftentimes, we do utilize contracted individuals to do specific functions. And so it is important to be in alignment with those guidelines that Lisa shared. So I just want to make sure that that is the takeaway from that. And you might want to look at, your contracted folks and just make sure that you're in alignment with that. The next thing on our list, and a team, if I could get us to go to is compensation. I want to just show us the living wage calculator. So if we could just share the screen and just go to that link and just kind of once you get there, I'll tell you exactly what to do. I'm on it on mine. So I'll tell you exactly where to go from there. So it is it's the livingwage.mit.edu. It's the living wage calculator. Thank you. Thank you. You're already there, but can you go back one? I just want folks to see exactly how to get there. Go back one more. So once you go to the link, you're going to select the location. So we're going to select North Carolina. I think we had Wake County. We clicked on Wake County and we were there. And then you would do this for your individual communities. And so once you do that, then you would look at the poverty, look at the prompts that you have there. It highlights the typical expenses and then kind of gives you a way to calculate also some of the typical annual salaries by occupational area. And so we just want you to know that that resource is available to you. And so you could go in and you can do some kind of navigating to just see where your wages are. And we know that as nonprofit organizations, sometimes we are challenged with competing, but we do want to illuminate efforts towards positions having compensation in alignment with a living wage. And if we could go back to the gallery, that would be great. Were any of you familiar with the living wage calculator? Is that your first time seeing that resource or no? Any first time? Never seen it before? Never heard of it? Okay. You have heard of it, Shamel? I saw your hand. Yes or no? Yes. Sorry.
I haven't heard of it.
Oh, okay. All right. Thank you. So that's a resource that you can access as it relates to living wage and in terms of that. Rebecca, did you want to mention the salary and benefits report?
Sure.
Okay.
The center partners with Association Trends to do a compensation study. And we usually update it every 2 or 3 years or so. I think we're actually due for a new one. And I believe there's been talks about how we're going to go about doing that. We may be looking for a different partner this time around. But I will say that when you get an invite from us to participate in the compensation study, to fill out a survey based on your organization, it's really helpful. The more people that participate, the more robust that data is. But you can learn more about the one that we have there. That is actually produced. We partner with Association Trends, and then we work with Columbia Books to provide it. We provide a nice discount to our members. But if you're looking for a study to kind of make sure that your pay is on scale and on track, that's one way to make sure that that's the case. But I'll put the link in here if you're interested in learning more about that. I can pop that in there for you all.
Thank you so much. And that's the
Yep.
salary and benefits report. So again, another resource as you're trying to make those decisions in crafting the job description. Also, I do want to, I meant to say this when we were looking at the ED job description, write in your notes, page 39. So when we did the example of the executive director of writing the job description on page 127, just make a reference there to page 39 in your workbook. When you go to page 39 in your workbook, there are some duties and responsibilities of the ED. On that handout, we compare the chair of the board role to the executive director role. I meant to mention that earlier, so sorry. But I want to just make sure you know that that resource is there for you as well in your material. And so the next thing that we want to focus on is retention. And so team, if we could go to slide 11. Did everybody get page 39? Everybody see what I was talking about? Okay. All right. So, in thinking about retention, one of the areas, or here's our list of all the the focal points, in terms of retention. And so when we are recruiting, of course, we are in some cases, depending upon what the position is responsible for and what their duties are, we do background checks. There are different organizations, and you typically pay for those background checks to be conducted. Some of your positions may warrant a sign off on a conflict of interest or a conflict or a confidentiality form. So you want to pay attention to that depending upon what types of work they're doing. Sometimes when we're working with vulnerable populations, sometimes in healthcare, those types of services or resources that we make available to people and we're interacting with them, employees are interacting with them to deliver a service, we might ask them to sign off on a conflict of interest or a confidentiality agreement document. Also with volunteers, we may very well have to do background checks, and we may very well have them sign off on conflict of interest or confidentiality agreements, depending on what the work is that they're engaged in. Early on, a couple of sessions back, we shared with you the legal compliance checklist. And that resource is also available to you as well. So keep that in mind. it isn't necessarily for all employees to have to sign off on these various agreements or having to go through a particular type of background check, but it is very much a possibility. So you want to kind of keep that in mind. If you look at page 130, I want to talk about employee benefits a little bit. Now, for our nonprofit organizations, oftentimes we aren't necessarily able to offer an extensive benefits package. And so it is very common for executive directors and or boards of directors of nonprofits to think about ways that we can offer benefits to our employees that may not necessarily have a high cost to those options. And so on page 130, that is identified as affordable benefits. And so having flexible work schedules that can help out in some cases. It can make or break whether or not a person is able to fulfill their role or position. So we want to think about that based on the position. Self-care, I've heard that. We heard that talked about related to the executive director. Maybe encouraging work-life balance and incorporating some ways that is achieved. Offering professional development to employees. Try to infuse some fun into the environment or the culture. And then also, we may not, as our particular organization, may not have any type of item or resource that we can offer as a discount, but we might have a partner agency or a organization that we collaborate with that might be able to, we might be able to work with to offer our employees some discounts as a result of them being an employee with us. And so professional development is attractive a lot of times to individuals, especially maybe some of our novice employees. They're new in their careers and so on. And so that may very well be a resource that we can make available to them. And so employee benefits, that's a area. If we could go back to the gallery, are there any benefits that any of you offer that I didn't mention with your nonprofit organizations? Are there any kind of unique ways that you've kind of worked to be more of a support to employees? Any ways that any of you have been able to implement?
So along the line, this is still Sally, along the lines of like self-care and work-life balance, we have started to implement staff mental health work days where we do things like we had this activity called Dip and Paint, which is a play off of Sip and Paint. We had different dips and we painted and just talked about like mental health in the workplace and gave them lots of statistics and tips on, helping out.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. Anybody else? I think we've got a couple of things.
Yep, I was just gonna say, we also do wellness days, where we'll look at the calendar and see like around certain holidays, if you can give an extra day, to make the holiday a little bit longer, right? Or that weekend extended. So we do that. And I don't know if you mentioned like any outside, like online things, but we have a system called Insperity that employees can go and get coaching on just, some difficulties they may be experiencing with their workflow or, other things. So it's like an outside resource that they can access.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing. I think we have a couple items in the chat of some ideas. It is an opportunity to get creative, right? It's an opportunity to think a little differently about an employee's work experience. And so, Lisa, I see you unmuted, so I'm gonna let you tell us what you see.
Someone, Courtney mentioned that they offer, at our school, a spring sabbatical for 2 days, which is nice, a fall sabbatical for 5 days, and looking into YWCA membership. What else we got? Options to work remotely, we mentioned. Working
Mhm.
staff wellness grants they have.
Mm.
Family-friendly where'd it go? Family-friendly workspace, and most of the staff's kids hang out. Well, that's cool. We're
Mhm.
here whenever
Mhm.
needed. Yeah, I remember those days. Those were fun.
I
We also
know,
had
right?
at my last nonprofit, we also had a bring your pet to work day. Oh my God, that was interesting.
Mhm.
Little animal, dogs and cats and kids, dogs, cats, and kids. Okay. What is it? Oh, and dogs in the office. There we go. Got someone who had also had that. I think that's it. I think that's covered most of it.
Okay, all right, thank you. And thank you all thank you for sharing that. Again, it's an opportunity for us to get creative and to be a little innovative in how we, oh, I'm sorry, Shmel, go right ahead. I see your hand.
I was just gonna say something that I do with my board is so we actually partner with a lot of small businesses in Durham, downtown Durham. And so they have different products to where we can go around, me and my vice president, and we put together little baskets for the rest of our board on little sample products that they give out to people that they just want to try, just to be able to get like you said, just show your board that you appreciate them and you see the work and let them know that it's not going unnoticed.
Thank you. Wow, that's a good idea. Especially when you think about acknowledging your volunteers and retaining them, and then also being able to do that with employees as well. You know, even for the folks who they give, and they support, whether it's that they're paid to work with us or whether they're volunteering. And they do it without looking for a thank you, right? They do it without looking for, this over expression of appreciation. But doesn't it feel good when we do it? It feels good when we do it and when we receive it. And so these are some great these are some great ideas in terms of just kind of how we might be able to offset some cost if we're, trying to do this kind of directly as a budget item or something like that. Just thinking about ways that we can support. If I could get us to turn to page 131 in our workbooks. And so in just thinking about employee relations and how we can continue to support and acknowledge the people that are helping us do the work, whether they're contracted, whether they're volunteers, or whether they are employees. And so we want you to just kind of see that in your workbook, we've put together or at least kind of presented this image of a person and the fact that it is the total person, the employee total person, the contracted total person, the volunteer total person that we are working with. And so when I show up, whether I am a board member or whether I am a participant, or whether I'm a board member or whether I'm a volunteer, or whether I am paid to be on staff, I am showing up with my experience, my expertise, my skills, my knowledge, and all of that. I am probably carrying and working in alignment with the mission and the vision and have heart for this organization that I'm a part of. And so I am at the ready to partner, to collaborate, to work with all of the individuals that are a part of your organization. And in some ways, when we think about the reasons that you have heard when people say, I want to work with your organization, when you're in those interviews and they're talking about why they are there, why they applied to be a part of your organization, quite often what we hear is self-directedness and also self-motivated. You know, so they enter in and they come in kind of being self-guided to us, if for nothing else, because we are a public charity and we are out doing work and working in our community and serving and working in a way that is helping the community at large, or helping a population of people, or you know, addressing a cause as it relates to the mission of our organization. So on page 31, what we're wanting to convey here is that keep in mind that I, Pamela Palmer, am showing up with all of what we have illustrated here, but in addition to other things that you don't know about yet until you get to know me, right? And so the idea is that we want to foster healthy employee relationships. And we want to foster healthy board relationships and volunteer relationships and fruitful relationships with the people that we contract with. And so just kind of keep this in mind, that when we show up, these are ways in which we are showing up in terms of what we're bringing to the organization. Transitioning from that then is a formality of having a volunteer handbook, an employee handbook, contractor guidelines. Lisa gave the example of the gentleman who really was a contractor person, but he functioned like an employee. And so having a formal way of speaking to the contracted person, the employee, or the volunteer, as to how they are supposed to show up and work and the ways in which they're to do that. And it starts with that employee handbook. And so team, if you could show, it's on the reference sheet, if you could show under retention, the employee handbook resource that we have, that would be great. And this is an essential nonprofit employee handbook, kind of guidelines and table of contents. So we want to kind of show you this resource. Okay. And so this is nonprofithr.com. That's where we were able to get this resource. And as we're scrolling through, it has different sections. And some of you, this may be a refresher, but for some of you, this tool might be the answer to a gap that you have. So section 1, kind of go back for me. You've got some general employment policies here. We talked about, you know, the equity, diversity, inclusion policy. We already talked about the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission, Equal Employment Opportunity Acts, Equal Employment Opportunity Laws. And so there's some policy alignment here. Conflict of interest policy, non-disclosure confidentiality policy, we talked about that. So for this particular template, that's in section 1. In section 2, it highlights whether or not you're part-time, you're full-time, you're exempt, you're temporary. So there's information about employment status, and Lisa highlighted that for us. In section 3 of this template is recruiting and hiring. So we talked about job description. We talked about what the roles and responsibilities are of the executive director. We talked about the hours that the person works. So in this section 3, this is all about the recruiting and hiring of an employee. In section 4, it's compensation and salary administration and what that looks like. In section 5, it is general workplace policies. And team, you can keep going here. In section 6, employee benefit programs, we talked about that. In section 7, if anyone wants to take a leave of some sort, and then also having policies related to that. In section 8, organizational property and technology, boy, that's a big one nowadays. in terms of equipment and resources that individuals use to do their jobs or volunteer. And then employee performance and workplace conduct, that's in section 9. In section 10, separation from employment with our agency. Section 11, employee acknowledgement form that they actually receive the handbook. And so that, if you're able to bring together, even if you're continuously building the employee handbook, and might I add, having a volunteer handbook is helpful. And then also your board of directors having some type of manual or guide that they refer to as well. At least if we have that, everyone is operating from the same page in terms of expectations and how we're supposed to work. So thank you, team, for showing that. As a part of the employee handbook, I want you to make a special note having a grievance process. So if an employee or a volunteer or a contracted person has some type of concern that they want and need to express, it can be difficult to do that when your staff is small. It can be very, very difficult to do that when your staff is small.
And I just want to add, Dr. Palmer, on that, just a quick note, and you all know this, guys, everything is good until it's not. So that's why it's really important to make sure you have that down. I learned that really the hard way. Everything is good until it's not.
Team, can we go to this website? It's under recruitment on the handout sheet, the www.ncava.net. Someone asked about a volunteer handbook, and I know that we don't necessarily show that, but I just want them to see that that resource is in their information. So we did think of that. Someone asked, I think, Lisa, for a sample of a volunteer handbook, but it's
yeah, I
believe
see
that's
that.
it. Yeah. So if we
We
could
can
just
get
show
that.
that.
I,
Okay. All right. We
yeah.
can put, who was it? Can we give it, or just put it for everyone? That
Yeah.
link. I know it's in the handout there, but I was just thinking if we could make sure that they get that. But a grievance process, and then also thinking about how do we transition when people are no longer with us. One of the things that I see that happens a lot is like a sudden transition of someone, like someone suddenly, for whatever reason, it could be positive, it could be negative, it could be, but when it's unexpected and we have a small staff and we are having to fill in for that person, it's important to have like backups, you know what I mean? Like having someone else that has an idea of what that person does and how they work. Because when we have small staffs, sometimes a lot of tasks are being completed, or duties and responsibilities are being completed by a person. That person is no longer with us all of a sudden, and we don't know what to do.
Yeah.
And so that can be not a good look, let's say, to the community at large. When that happens and they're trying to interact, all of a sudden the person isn't there, everything stops.
Right.
And so
Right.
that's important.
One of the things that we've done at the center, which I find very helpful, we have instituted a red folder system, and what the red folder contains, every employee, we have a format. They write down all their job duties and activities, and they keep this red folder updated. So that way, when a new person comes in or if that person leaves, they can pick up this information and read about all the tasks. Now, what's interesting, if a person is there when it comes to annual review time, I would look at that red folder, because you'd be surprised of those tasks. You know that at the bottom of the job descriptions, it says all other duties as assigned, that little you'll find what those activities are in the red folder, because you're like, oh wow, this isn't on your job description. You do this? Oh wow, I didn't know you did that. So I think it's very helpful for that system. You have it, don't just try to think about it, but have the employee themselves fill this out and keep it updated and bring it to their annual review. So that way, again, it's kept updated and you're aware of what you may or may not need to add to the job description. Sorry, Dr. Palmer, just want that. add
No,
what
no,
Yeah.
thank you. I appreciate you sharing it. I'm envisioning a red folder. That's what I'm envisioning, in terms of that. So it's just good to have in writing somewhere, you know, yes, the job description it serves a purpose. But when you get into the day-to-day operations and how tasks are actually completed, um, you know, it takes on the nature of the way that person works. And so I might think one way about how to file something. Lisa might think another way about how to file that same something. And, we both walk away from our roles and nobody really knows exactly how to do a particular task. And so if you can build in some ways to have a red folder concept, we can coin that, Lisa, we can coin that. Have a red folder, kind of approach, to this, I think would be very, very helpful. The other thing, passwords, like passwords and logins. I have, run into several organizations, nonprofits in particular, obviously, where passwords and logins, and especially for social media platforms, sometimes people are setting up social media platforms and they're using their personal information as opposed to the agency's information. And then we have to start over, with setting up, said platform. So, having logins and passwords in a particular place so people know where to go should something happen is also important. Team, let's go to slide 12. We are in the home stretch. This is our last component of HR. And so what we want to lift up here is career development, promotion of employees, professional development opportunities, performance evaluation, and compensation review. Rebecca, you want to share what you just put in the chat? I know it was that volunteer handbook.
Yeah, it's just an example of one that I pulled up in our resource
Mhm.
library. This is accessible by members, but I'm just providing it as an opportunity for you if you want to download that. This is a great tool kit for making sure that you're set up for volunteers and all that.
Excellent, excellent. Thank you so much. So we are looking at career development, promotion, professional development, performance evaluation, and compensation review. And we shared two resources with you, the living wage calculator, and then a reference to the compensation report, salary and benefits report, as it relates to that. I want to hone in on performance evaluation. I'll wait till. Thank you, Leslie. I want to hone in on performance evaluation in particular. One of the areas I'll just say of limitations and gaps that we have is having an apparatus in place for consistent performance evaluation practices. This is probably one of those areas where many of our nonprofit organizations are limited in capacity. And so I do think it's important to think about establishing a very practical way that aligns with your capacity to give feedback and to inform our employees as to their performance. And so think about it in three ways. Think about whether or not we are looking at what results individuals are able to deliver on. So a results-based evaluation might be a way to go. So we're looking at what results are they producing. Also, their interpersonal kind of dynamics with the organization, especially for nonprofits, which is a behavior-based type of evaluation. In terms of, because if you think about it with nonprofit organizations, we mentioned earlier the ED, not just the ED, but all of us that are working with a nonprofit potentially are interfacing with the board, volunteers, people we serve. And so there is a aspect of all of us, regardless of our position, a behavior-based feedback opportunity. So how are we, interpersonally, how are we engaging with those stakeholder groups? And then also in terms of our attributes, our leadership attributes, which is more of a trait-based approach. Our leadership attributes, we might even fall back on interpersonal dynamics there too, but also in terms of competencies. And so, you know, what is our profession? Are we in development? Are we finance? Are we program management? You know, what is our particular area? Are we operations? And so our trait-based approach to evaluation, our behavior-based approach to evaluation, and our results-based approach to evaluation is important to think about. And when you look at our the resources that we provided, we have included in their performance evaluation and compensation review resources there. So again, our recruitment, our retention and reward is really kind of where we are with this. In your workbook, if you go to page, we've got this resource on page 133. And we've identified this as attributes of a nonprofit leader and manager. And we all, regardless of our positions, we find ourselves leading on some days. We find ourselves managing on some days. And on a lot of days, we're doing both. We're moving in and out of leading and managing in the positions that we have. And so in thinking about rewarding our employees, align it with promotions, align it with professional development opportunities, align it with compensation, align it with my performance in terms of how we gauge rewarding the people that actually help us get the work done each and every day in the nonprofits that we work with. Team, if we could go to slide, I want to go to slide back to the beginning where we have the recruitment and retention and reward on the one slide. I think, oh, here it is. Slide 4, sorry, slide 4. Little delay there. I had it laying over to the side. I pulled it out of my packet here. So here's our here are our topics that we covered today as it relates to human resources. And you also have a human resources handout reference that the team put in the chat amongst some other resources. Our hope is that you were either reminded and or maybe it was a refresher, or maybe it was brand new information that you can now incorporate in the way in which you do human resources and personnel administration. We started this off by posing the question, what does this look like in your organization? And then what we did is offered resources and ways to enhance your capacity in this area. Or maybe there are quite a few items here that you have in place. But here's an opportunity to enhance capacity as it relates to human resources. If we could go back to the gallery and let me just do like a check-in. That was our 6th topic. That was our 6th and last official session of the Institute. And so I just want to get a temperature gauge. You can use your react button. You've been with us for 6 weeks now, every Tuesday. And I would like to think you don't hear my voice in your sleep, but you might, spending the kind of time that we have spent together, or any of our voices in your sleep, when you finish up with us each week. So I just want to get a temperature gauge. How are you feeling about your experience? And you can use your react button. You can put it in the chat. You can unmute yourself. It's completely up to you how you want to share with us.
Have someone can't believe it's been 6 weeks. We say that too every
I know.
day. Goes by quick.
Absolutely. Absolutely, we do.
We have, what were those, Mary? It was something floating up on your screen. I didn't catch it.
Okay. Okay. All right.
Excellent training, especially as a beginner.
Okay.
The materials was
Good.
very helpful.
Good. Good, good,
Dr.
good.
Palmer, for the beginners in the group or the really new people starting, give your spiel about, it's not a spiel. I like the way you explain that you take this off in chunks. Just because this information was over all 6 weeks, you know what you say. I think that'll be good I like to hear it.
Here- All right. So first of all, we are all in this together. And when you are walking into your role, it could be the executive director role, or it could be a different role. And you show up in a nonprofit organization for the very first time as an employee, there are a lot of moving parts, and a lot is coming at us simultaneously. Sometimes we're working in all 6 of these areas that we've trained on. We're working in all 6 of these areas. We're going in and out, in and out, in and out, in and out. But just take a bite size of each and every part of this and begin to develop a way to enhance your capacity realistically, because sometimes we think, we can do all of this all at one time. That's not going to be healthy. Let me just say.
Right.
So, try to look at where you are in terms of your current level of capacity, decide what you want to work on, and give yourself time to do it. Don't think that you have to be at 100 on everything.
Right.
Because any movement, good, bad, or indifferent, within your organization, any movement has there are multiple things happening as a result of that. So, give yourself some grace, take a little bit at a time, and try to be very realistic in what you take on in terms of enhancing capacity. So.
Right. And if you get stuck along the way of going through any of these 6 principles, remember the centers here. I think Rebecca in a minute will go through our member benefits that can help you in a number of ways. If you need additional advice, coaching, you just want to voice something out, that we're here to do that. And I think Rebecca will explain our member benefits in a minute to you. But Dr. Palmer, there's been a range of different comments in terms of an interesting, encouraging. I'm glad to get the resources.
Good.
So pretty good.
Good. All right. Well, Rebecca, I'm going to turn it over to you because we're going to take a break before graduation, and Rebecca has to share some information before that.
Yep, I'm standing in between you and your break and graduation, so I'll keep it brief. But just a couple notes about, for each session, we pull out specific member benefits that we want to make you aware of. If you're a current member or you're a future hopeful member, these are some of the things you can look forward to under the human resources category. You'll see pro bono consultations with HR professionals. You also see that members save quite a bit on our nonprofit job board, and when you have a position that's available for a 60-day job post on there. And then certainly under Publications Information Central, what we call our resource library, we have plenty of things there that you see listed, some of which we talked about and covered today. And then on the next slide, we've got our money saving partners that are HR related. So Mutual of America, First Nonprofits, Marshall McLennan Agency, and the Nonprofit Risk Management Center. These are all member benefits. You get discounts on memberships with them, those sorts of things, special access to their tools and money saving options. And so with that, this was the overview of all the session topics and the dates. Dr. Palmer, did you want to take it from here before we go into our break?
Sure. And so as here is where we started with our capacity building framework for nonprofit management. Just a quick a pop quiz. How many principles do we have? How many principles and practices guide? How many principles does and you can use the chat if you like. How many principles are there? And I'm going to go fairly quickly here. And how many did we cover in the session? So there are a total of 12. How many did we cover in the session? 6. I see 6, so I can go on. How many management conditions are there? How many management conditions are there? Bill, I don't. Oh, there we go. There's 3. And then how many capacity assessments did we do in the workshop series?
There we
Okay,
go.
1. All right, 1. Okay. And then how many total practices? So we have 12 principles. How many total practices is that? Let's see.
Hint, it's a big number.
All right, it's 216 practices total. 216. And then how many of the 216 practices are aligned with the 6? How many out of the 216 align with the 6 principles? At least I think we're pushing it.
Yeah, I
We're
think so
pushing it
too.
now.
They're
We're
like, look,
pushing it.
they're like, look, lady.
I know. All right. So Lisa, you can tell them how many practices.
125.
So we covered in essence 6 principles, 125 practices. Thank you so much for participating in the Institute. It is 11:52. We're coming back at 12 o'clock on the dot, and we are going to graduate from our program.
Yep. See you then.
You're muted, Lisa. You're muted.
I was looking for our music, but I think that comes later. So just a quick, yes, welcome back, everyone. As you can see, we're getting ready for graduation and just want to go over a brief agenda with you. We can go to our agenda slide to show you what we'll do today. So as you can see on the board, you have me and Dr. Palmer. We'll give you a quick welcome. We'll have commencement with our guest speaker, and we'll confer of our certificates and viewing of our graduation video, which will, hopefully you all will be excited to see. So congratulations, you guys. You made it through the 6 weeks for 3.5 hours, 1 day a week. Hopefully, it must be a proud moment for you all. We at the center hope you cherish the fruits of your hard work, and I hope that the Nonprofit Management Institute will help improve all you're trying to do to enhance your organization. I want you to think about being bold, be courageous, but most of all, be your best. Again, congratulations and happy graduation. Dr. P, you want to give your welcome?
Yes, happy graduation and congratulations to all of you. I now have 50 more colleagues. I think it's about 50 of us on here. I have 50 more colleagues that I can reach out to and connect with now that we've been able to get acquainted through this institute. We sincerely and genuinely appreciate each one of you. Thank you for choosing the Nonprofit Management Institute as a professional development resource for you. Let's get ready for the commencement.
Yeah. Yes, we should. But before we get started, I want to say thank you to the center's wonderful team. You don't get to see our faces much, but here they are. As you know, your wonderful Dr. Palmer. We have Ivan Canada, our ED. Ren Davison will be our guest speaker, and I'll introduce her in a moment. Rebecca Beck, myself, and then Leslie Morales, who you don't get to see much, but she's behind the scenes doing wonderful work. So in case, again, in the future, if you have any questions, you can reach out to any one of us to help you resolve whatever it is that you're looking for. So just to give a brief introduction to Ren, Ren Davison, an MPA MSW, is a seasoned public servant with over 15 years of experience in the nonprofit sector in North Carolina. She's currently serving as the Shared Services Director at the North Carolina Partnership for Children. Ren drives statewide initiatives to enhance operational efficiency, equity, and collaboration across a network of 75 local nonprofit organizations. Ren holds a deep commitment to human-centered leadership, building strong relationships, fostering innovation, and leading teams to deliver impactful system-led level changes. Ren holds a master's degree in public administration and social work and a certificate in nonprofit leadership from the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill. So welcome, Ren. I believe you're on. And I'm gonna hand it over to you. Oh, Ren's not on. Okay.
I don't see her yet in the. Oh,
Here
there
she is. There she is.
I'll let her in now.
Yeah. Right on time.
Yeah.
Is she in yet? I don't see her face. Ren, are you in?
Yes, I'm here.
Hi, Ren. You are like right on time. I just finished introducing you, did this wonderful bio introduction, then you weren't there. But now you're here. So we're gonna hand it over to you, Ren.
Oh,
Are you ready? Are you
sure.
okay? Great.
All right.
And team, if we could go back to gallery view, that would be great. Welcome, Ren.
Thank you. Well, good afternoon, all. NPMI Spring 2025 graduates. To you and all of those who supported you through the journey of this institute, I want to say congratulations. My name is Ren Davison. I serve as the Shared Services Director for the North Carolina Partnership for Children, and I too am a graduate of the Nonprofit Management Institute. Today, for you, marks the completion of a 6-week intensive leadership and professional development venture. But more than that, today is a celebration of your perseverance, growth, and unshakable belief that investing in yourself is a powerful step towards investing in others. You balance this time commitment while managing full-time jobs, family responsibilities, and the many curveballs that life throws. I imagine many of you squeezed in learning between meetings or community commitments. There were possibly moments of doubt, definitely exhaustion, and perhaps even the thought of giving up. But you didn't. You stayed. You showed up again and again, just like we do in our work as nonprofit leaders. And in doing so, you modeled exactly the kind of leadership our sector so desperately needs: resilient, committed, and deeply human. This isn't just a course, it's a journey of adult learning, personal reflection, and skill building. Over these last 6 weeks, you strengthened your ability to think strategically, lead thoughtfully, and build capacity, not within just within your organizations, but within those that you serve every day. That matters because leadership isn't defined by how easy the path is. It's defined by how we walk it, especially when it's hard. Now you stand equipped not only with knowledge, but with insight, connection, and courage. Use it. Use it as to challenge systems that no longer serve. Use it to lift up voices that go unheard. Use it to build teams, strengthen missions, and expand your organization's reach in ways that are sustainable and just. You're not the same person that started this institute 6 weeks ago, and that's the point. You embrace the opportunity for growth, And now you're ready to lead with even greater purpose and impact. So today we honor not just what you've completed, but how you've grown in your leadership. Congratulations, NPMI Spring 2025 graduates. Go forward, continue to do the important work that you do, and build something extraordinary. Thank you.
Thank you, Ren. We really appreciate that. Thank you so much. All right, Dr. Palmer, I think you're on with conferring and some music,
So
I
we're going to
believe.
confer. You're receiving your certificates. And right as we go into here, let me see some reaction going on in the in your windows and all that great stuff. And so we are
have a beer.
conferring from right to left, right? So the tassel is over here to the right. And so again, we want to acknowledge the Spring 2025 Nonprofit Management Institute graduates by conferring your certificates. Can we turn our tassels? Congratulations. Yes, 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 yes.
That's awesome.
All right, thank you all. Congratulations. We've carved out a little bit of time to view our graduation video. Thanks to those of you who submitted a short video with your thoughts and wishes for your fellow classmates. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen and show that. When we come back, we'll do a quick, oh, sorry, Maurice, we'll correct that on your certificate. Thanks for letting us know. Sorry about that. We'll make sure it's correct on your certificate though, I promise. Also, when we come back, we'll take quick photos. I'll just do a quick screen grab. So make sure that if you'd like to be in the class photo, you can show your video when we come back for that. So let's see if I can do this as well as my colleague Leslie does this. So I'm going to have to share my sound too. All right, so I'm clicking share my sound and share my screen. And Lisa and Dr. Palmer, if you give me a heads up when I start to play it, if you hear sound.
Greetings, Nonprofit Management Institute graduates.
You got it.
2025.
Thank you.
You got the sound, but no video. With you over the past 6 weeks.
Oh yeah,
And
sorry.
we appreciate you selecting the North Carolina Center for Nonprofits Institute
It's a
to
cute
grow
panda bear, though.
professionally and to also enhance the capacity of your nonprofit.
There
We
she
are
goes.
hoping that you will be able to share all that you've learned with others who are a part of your organization. Again, it was great getting to know you, and congratulations on completing the Nonprofit Management Institute.
Good morning. I am Katricia Johnson, Executive Director of Harvard Incorporated, a nonprofit providing comprehensive services for victims and survivors of domestic violence and sexual assault. What I appreciated most about the Nonprofit Institute was the relevancy of the information, the engagement of the presenters, the facilitators for the Nonprofit Institute, as well as I will have a roadmap moving forward in order to ensure that our nonprofit is operating in accordance to state and federal laws, and more importantly, able to serve our constituents with efficiency. Thank you.
What I value most about the Nonprofit Management Institute is, even though that it's virtual, the space really allowed me to grow, connect with others in the nonprofit space, and also to be inspired. As a program director at Safe Child, I can say that I'm leaving with more practical tools, really a renewed sense of energy, and really a network that reminds me that we don't do this work alone.
Hello guys, how we doing? This is Maurice Reed with Suited for Veterans. It was an honor and a privilege to be part of your class, and I learned a lot, and hopefully we keep in touch like I said we should, because we have a long way to go, especially with these days and age of darkness and uncertainty. And like I said, my contact is always going to be the same, mreed@suitedforveterans.org. Again, mreed@suitedforveterans.org. Hope to hear from y'all soon, and we can definitely congregate and think about what we can do to better this world. Thank you so much.
Thank you for showing up, for your vulnerability, and just your overall awesomeness. This process just reminded me that leadership is a shared journey, and not just a single act. So keep pushing forward, keep asking those bold questions, and just never underestimate the power of your voice. And so grateful to have went on this journey with each of you.
What I value most about the Nonprofit Management Institute is the space that it created for deep reflection and growth within a community of passionate leaders. I especially appreciated taking a deeper dive into the strategic planning process, learning different systems on how to manage our finances, as well as raise funds to support our programs and services. And one that has been a thorn in my side and that I definitely struggle with is board governance. I see how these core areas shape how I lead with greater intention and clarity. One unexpected lesson that I learned was understanding scope and scale. A lot of times we are bright-eyed and bushy-tailed and we have all these big ideas, but Dr. Palmer really brought it into reality for me when she talked about making sure that we have the capacity to sustain the programs and services that we're so passionate about. To my fellow cohort members, thank you for your authenticity and wisdom. This journey reminded me that we're truly better when we grow together. And a huge thank you to Dr. Palmer, Rebecca, Lisa, Leslie, and the North Carolina Center for Nonprofits team for making all of this possible.
Hi, fellow graduates. I've often referred to nonprofit professionals as soldiers for good. We're all out there doing our thing and making the world a better place. That work is important. That work is imperative. But while we're doing that work, let's not forget about self-care. We all have value, and we matter too. So take care of yourself and be blessed.
Thanks everyone for being a part of that. Really appreciate all of you who were able to contribute. Yes, we'll make note of these changes here for certificates. Thank you for putting those in there. I really do appreciate that. That'll help our team very greatly. Leslie, will you make note of those in the chat for us? I'm going to go ahead and do class photos real quick before we run out of time. So the way we're going to do this is if you'd like to be in the photo, you'll go ahead and show your video, and I'm going to give a countdown and take a quick screenshot. So we'll try this. Here we go. Okay, let me do this. Hold on. Gotta make sure I don't catch anybody off guard. All right, so when I say 1, 2, 3, everybody smile. And I'm going to do this a couple times, so bear with me. All right, 1, 2, 3. All right, that screen grab real quick. Beautiful. Everybody looks great, I promise. All right, I'm going to save that real quick. Screen 1. Okay, save that. Now I'm going to move to the next screen over. All right, everybody looks great. We're gonna have to do 3 of these. We've got so many people on. This is awesome. All right, on the count of 3, hold on, let me get my screen grab up. All right. Okay, on the count of 3, 1, 2, 3. Very nice. 2. Go. Save this real quick. Screen 2. Great. And then our last screen will be screen 3. X that out. All right, 1, 2, 3. Everybody smiling, eyes open. 3. Beautiful. Let me grab that. Perfect.
This is the longest I've held a smile.
Your cheeks are gonna hurt,
Yes,
right?
cheeks are hurting. Come on.
Yeah. All right. Thank you, everyone. Very nice. Thank you, everyone, for bearing with us for that part. Just a few more notes as we close. We will go ahead and put the final evaluation in the chat for all of you, so you have that there. We invite you to give us your final evaluation for this session, thinking back on your time with the Institute. We'd love to gather your feedback one last time. We will reach out typically about 3 months after, and I'll answer that question in a second. Dosali, I see your question. We typically reach out about 3 months post-graduation to get some more feedback from you. So be thinking about how you're implementing what you've learned and what lessons you're carrying forward, because we do ask you to sort of give us some feedback. We kind of want to know how things are going a few months out. So that'll be coming your way by email when the time comes. We will put a cohort directory. It's actually already uploaded into the last session folder on the extranet. It'll be in the wraparound email that'll come out today. It's a great way to keep in touch. Also want to mention that we do have that LinkedIn group, and that will still run, so you can join that at any time. Make sure that you're staying connected with your fellow cohort members, asking questions, sharing resources, tools, guidance, being cheerleaders for one another, like we talked about, right? Or KEDS, if you will, right? We learned that acronym today, KEDS. Keeping the executive director sane. That's there for you as well. And I did also want to mention that we'll be mailing you all your certificates along with class photos. Those will come out in the next few weeks. You'll get that in the mail. If your mailing address has changed at all, please let us know so we make sure we mail it to the right person. But as long as your mailing address has not changed from what we mailed your book to, your workbook, you should be fine, no worries. And then the only other thing I wanted to make sure that I mentioned was that we do have our conference coming up. Would love to see you all there. It's a really great time to connect with one another in person. It'll be in RTP this year, November 19th to the 20th. It's a Wednesday, Thursday. More details will be coming. You all will receive the link when it becomes available for registration, but would love to see as many of you as we can
Yes,
come to that.
definitely. Please come up and introduce yourselves so we can put the face to the human.
Yes. That's right. And I did just want to say one more thanks to Ren for joining us today and for offering such words of encouragement. I'll be taking away that idea that we're all resilient, committed, and deeply human. Those are things I'm carrying forward from this 6 weeks together, and hope you will too. I want to thank Dr. Palmer for facilitating each week and bringing so much passion and encouragement and knowledge to all of you, and myself included. Lisa for keeping us on track and helping to fill in where needed. Also want to say thanks to Tracy, who joined us as part of the financial management section. We really appreciate her support for this course and her diligence and participating in each cohort with us. This is actually our 10th cohort of this series, which is unbelievable. So we're really excited to continue on with this, and we have offered it once in person and really enjoyed that. So if you know of a group that's looking for this, is interested in the opportunity to have this in person, we did it with the Cumberland Community Foundation, and they invited 30 of their grantees to come in and be a part of that. It was really, really fun, and it was really neat to do it in person. It's very different.
Yeah, we didn't see them for 6 weeks, guys. We did it over all that information you just got, it was over 2 days. That's right, 2 days. So you can imagine how they left. We did 3 topics each day. They left there like, woo.
Yeah.
Sorry, Rebecca, just had to put
Well,
that in
that's
there.
fine. No, I love it. I love it. I'll also say a quick thanks to Leslie, our wonderful colleague who was behind the scenes, sharing screen, sharing multiple links and sound and video. And so really appreciate Leslie for being a part of this series with us and being so on top of her game as always.
I think we have a question in the chat, I think.
Sure.
Amira?
Hey, I have a quick question. I told my children I was graduating today, and they just looked at me like I was crazy. So can I get a picture? I was just a little bit too late of that first slide with my name on it, because I want to blow their mind a little bit. So it's like,
cool.
Yeah, definitely. We can share that with you.
Thank you.
Yeah, of course. All
Oh,
right.
you mean share it right now is what you meant?
Yeah, I just want to take
Oh.
or you can send it to me. It doesn't matter. I just want to show it to you.
That's nice.
Yeah, let me make sure that I got you in there. Let's see.
Okay, perfect.
Yep, I got you in there. I'll forward this screenshot to you.
Okay, thank you.
Great, thank you.
And guys, please don't forget to fix my name. I was like, who's Shamel
All right,
Reed?
Maurice, we got you, Maurice.
I was like, Shamel Reed, a student for veterans. Who is Shamel?
Maurice, we got to figure out if we related or not. Let's see, we got the last name. We got to figure that out.
Maurice. I don't know how that happened.
Well, I'll be in touch and figure this out.
Yes, ma'am. I got a lot of reads from the West Coast, especially concentrated in South Carolina, Virginia, and Maryland area.
I don't know. I don't have any people over that way, but let me think on that.
Yeah. Especially
Sorry,
deep in
y'all.
South Carolina. Yeah, I got a lot of folks.
All right.
All right.
All right, guys, I think we're good. I think
Yeah,
we'll be on
you
for
all
a
have a
few
great
minutes.
day.
We'll still
Yeah,
be
we'll
on a
still
few
be
minutes
here.
after,
Yeah,
in case anyone has any questions.
Yep.
Thank you, guys. Hope to see you at the conference.
Thanks.
Bye,
All right. Hope to see you on the conference. Take care, guys.
Congratulations.
Thank you, guys. Take care.